Jin-woo's hand covered Sheyella's mouth, his other hand pressed against the cold wall behind her. Both of them frozen in the darkness of the restricted third-floor hallway. Through the crack in Principal Kim's office door, they could see everything. The principal sliding an envelope across his desk to a man whose face made Jin-woo's blood turn to ice.
Viktor Morozov.
Russian bratva, his father's most dangerous enemy. The park heir will be at the mandatory assembly Thursday, Principal Kim said in Russian, not knowing Jin-woo had been forced to learn the language by his father. Alone in the auditorium staging area during the security briefing. No guards, no protection. He'll be vulnerable, and no one will suspect the principal's involvement until it's too late. Morozov smiled, counting the money in the envelope. And his father? Will arrive exactly 12 minutes after we take him. Long enough for us to be gone. Close enough that he'll know someone betrayed him from the inside. Sheyella's breathing was rapid against Jin-woo's palm. He pressed closer to her, both of them knowing that one sound, one movement, one creak of the old building's floors would get them killed. This wasn't how their afternoon was supposed to go. 20 minutes ago, they'd been in the empty art studio on the second floor, lips meeting in the desperate way of two people who'd found sanctuary in each other. Sheyella's curves pressed against him, her natural hair loose around her shoulders, both of them stealing these precious moments before the world reminded them they didn't belong. Not to this university, not to their respective communities, not anywhere except with each other. Then they'd heard footsteps, multiple sets, Jin-woo's tormentors, the ones who made his daily life hell, searching for him. He and Sheylla had run, finding this restricted hallway, thinking they'd be safe. Instead, they'd stumbled into a conspiracy to kidnap him. Morozov stood, shaking the principal's hand. 3 days. Make sure nothing changes. If the park heir suspects anything, if security protocols shift, if there's any indication they know. There won't be. The boy is weak. Everyone knows it. He won't see this coming. Jin-woo felt Sheyella's hand find his free one, squeezing tight. Even here, even now, hearing himself described as weak by the principal who was selling him out. Her touch reminded him he wasn't alone. They waited until both men left, until the footsteps faded down the opposite stairwell, until the building returned to its usual afternoon silence. Only then did Jin-woo remove his hand from Sheyella's mouth. She immediately grabbed his face. Jin-woo, they're going to kidnap you. Thursday. That's 3 days away. We have to tell someone. Your father, the police, anyone. We can't. Jin-woo's voice was hollow. If I tell my father I overheard this while hiding in a restricted hallway with you, while running from students who bully me, while proving once again that I'm too weak to command respect, he won't thank me for the warning. He'll be disgusted that his heir was cowering in the shadows instead of standing his ground. Jin-woo, your life means nothing to him if I can't live it the way he demands. Jin-woo pulled away from her, the weight of 22 years of disappointment crushing down on him. You don't understand what it's like. Every day I fail him. Every day I prove I'm not the son he needed. This would just be more evidence. Sheyella's eyes flashed with anger. So what? You're just going to let them kidnap you, because you're afraid your father will be disappointed? I'm saying I need to think. I need to figure out how to handle this without proving once again that I'm the weak link in the Park family chain. They left the building separately the way they always did. Jin-woo walked to his car, a modest sedan, not the luxury vehicle his father had offered him because accepting it felt like accepting he belonged to a world he'd never fit into, and sat in the driver's seat for 20 minutes, hands shaking. His phone buzzed. Text from Sheylla. My apartment. 1 hour. We're figuring this out together. Jin-woo drove through Seoul's late afternoon traffic, his mind racing. Viktor Morozov wasn't just any rival. He was the reason Jin-woo's older cousin was dead, the reason his father's organization had spent 5 years in a Cold War with the Russian bratva, the reason Jin-woo had armed guards that he usually ditched following him to campus. And Principal Kim, the man who gave speeches about honor and integrity, was selling Jin-woo out for what looked like 2 million won. Maybe less. Sheyella's apartment was small, a studio in a neighborhood that charged reasonable rent because most Koreans didn't want to live near the growing African immigrant community. She'd faced discrimination from the moment she'd arrived in Seoul. People avoiding sitting next to her on the subway, shopkeepers watching her suspiciously, classmates whispering about her behind hands that didn't hide their mouths well enough. Jin-woo had noticed her the first week of the semester. Not because of how she looked, though she was beautiful, curves that Korean beauty standards pretended didn't exist, skin like polished mahogany, natural hair she wore proudly despite the stares, but because of how she'd handled a group of students mocking her accent. "I speak 4 languages," she'd said calmly. "Korean is my 4th. How many do you speak?" They'd shut up. Jin-woo had fallen a little bit in love right then. Now she opened her apartment door, pulled him inside, and immediately started pacing. "Okay, 3 days. Thursday assembly. Principal is compromised. Russian Mafia wants you kidnapped. What do we know?" Jin-woo sat on her small couch, watching her move. This was new, Sheylla in strategic mode, her mind working through problems the way his was supposed to but usually didn't when pressure mounted. "We know the location, staging area of the main auditorium. We know the timing, during the security briefing, which means 12 minutes before my father arrives for his scheduled campus donation announcement. We know the principal is involved, which means he can manipulate schedules, security protocols, access points. Can you tell anyone in your father's organization? Someone who isn't your father directly." Jin-woo thought about it. "Maybe. There's a man named Tae-min, my father's head of security. He's always been less disappointed in me than the others. But if I go to him, he'll tell my father. And my father will ask how I found out. And you'll have to admit you were hiding. With you. A girl he doesn't approve of because you're not Korean. Not connected to any useful family. Not someone who advances the Park family's interests." Jin-woo's voice was bitter. "He already thinks I'm weak. Admitting I'm in a relationship he'd consider another failure? While also admitting I was running from bullies. He might actually disown me." Sheylla stopped pacing. "So we handle this ourselves." "What?" "We stop the kidnapping ourselves. Without telling your father. Without admitting you were hiding. We use the fact that they think you're weak, that they think you won't see this coming, and we turn it against them." Jin-woo stared at her. "Sheylla, these are professional criminals. Morozov's people have killed dozens of people. The principal has access to everything. We're just 2 people everyone underestimates." Sheylla interrupted. "You because they think you're weak. Me because they think I'm just a foreign student who doesn't understand how things work here. But you know what? I've been dealing with people underestimating me my entire life. And you've been watching your father's organization operate since you were a child. We know more than they think we do. Drop a comment below if you're hooked, because what these 2 are about to pull off will blow your mind." Jin-woo felt something shift in his chest. Not confidence exactly, but something close to it. "What's your plan?" "First, information. We need to know exactly how they're planning to do this. Security gaps, timing, who else is involved. Second, evidence. We need proof that the principal is compromised. Something concrete that your father's people can't ignore even if they don't know how we got it. Third, prevention. We need to either stop the kidnapping from happening or make sure it fails so completely that Morozov's people are exposed. That's 3 different operations. We have 3 days." Sheylla sat next to him. "Jin-woo, I know you don't think you're strong the way your father wants you to be. But I've watched you. You notice things. You understand people. You think strategically when you're not paralyzed by fear of disappointing him. Those are strengths. Different strengths, but real ones." Jin-woo wanted to believe her. "How do we start?" "We start with the principal's office. He has files, schedules, communication records. If he's coordinating with Morozov, there's evidence somewhere in that office. Breaking into the principal's office is exactly the kind of thing 2 invisible students can do while everyone's looking the other way." Sheylla pulled out her laptop. "You know the campus security system. Your father donated the entire setup 2 years ago. I'm betting you paid attention. He had. Not because he cared about security, but because watching his father's people install it had been one of the few times his father had seemed proud of the family's influence. Jin-woo had studied every camera angle, every blind spot, every rotation schedule. Security changes shifts at 8 p.m., Jin-woo said slowly. There's a 15-minute gap when the evening guards are getting briefed by the day shift supervisor. The third floor is on a single camera that covers the main hallway, but the administrative offices have individual locks that reset during shift change. A glitch my father's people never fixed because they assumed only authorized personnel would be on campus after hours. Can you get us in? I have a student government keycard. My father made me join to build leadership skills. Jin-woo's voice was sarcastic. I've never used it for anything except getting out of events early, but it should access the administrative floor after hours. Then we go tonight, 8 p.m. We have 4 hours to prepare. They spent those hours planning with an intensity Jin-woo had never experienced. Sheylla was methodical, thinking through contingencies, identifying risks, creating backup plans. She pulled up building schematics on her laptop, mapped out routes, timed their movements. You're good at this, Jin-woo said at one point. My father was military back home. He taught me to think tactically before I could read. Sheyella's expression was sad. He died when I was 14.
Car accident.
But I remember everything he taught me about planning, about staying calm under pressure, about using what you have instead of wishing for what you don't.
I'm sorry.
Me too. But he'd love this, his daughter using his lessons to stop Russian mobsters in Seoul. She smiled slightly. He always said the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know you have. At 7:30, they left her apartment. Jin-woo drove them to campus, parking in a lot that wasn't covered by cameras. They waited in the car, watching the security shift change through Jin-woo's phone, which was connected to the campus security app his father's people had given him for safety monitoring. Shift change starting, Jin-woo said at exactly 8 p.m. We have 15 minutes. They moved quickly through the darkening campus. Spring evening air was cool, cherry blossoms falling around them like snow. Under different circumstances, it would have been romantic. Right now, it was just cover. Jin-woo's keycard worked on the administrative building's side entrance. They slipped inside, avoiding the main hallway camera by using the stairwell that connected to the third-floor offices through a fire door. Principal Kim's office was locked, but Sheylla produced a small toolkit from her bag. Where did you learn to pick locks? Jin-woo whispered. YouTube. I was bored last semester. She worked the lock with surprising efficiency. 30 seconds later, the door clicked open. The principal's office was exactly what Jin-woo expected. Expensive furniture, awards covering the walls, a massive desk that probably cost more than most students' tuition. Sheylla went straight to the computer while Jin-woo checked the physical files. Computer's password protected, Sheylla said. I can't break that without more time. Try honor and integrity, all one word, Jin-woo said absently, flipping through a filing cabinet. He uses it for everything. I heard him tell the vice principal once. Sheylla typed. That's embarrassingly easy. I'm in. Find anything about Thursday's assembly? Schedule modifications, security routing changes. A file labeled special arrangements. Oh. Sheyella's voice went flat. Jin-woo, look at this. He moved to stand behind her, reading over her shoulder. The file contained detailed information about Thursday's assembly, security positions, his father's arrival time, and a floor plan of the auditorium with a specific area circled in red. The staging room where Jin-woo would be waiting alone. But what made his blood run cold was the attachment. A wire transfer confirmation. 2 million won from an offshore account to Principal Kim's personal banking information. Dated 3 days ago. Screenshot everything, Jin-woo said. We need. The door handle rattled. They froze. Someone was trying to enter the office. Sheylla closed the laptop silently and shoved it in her bag. Jin-woo pointed to the large cabinet behind the principal's desk, the only hiding spot big enough for both of them. They squeezed inside, pulling the door shut just as the office door opened. Through the cabinet's ventilation slots, Jin-woo could see Principal Kim enter, followed by someone else. Not Morozov this time. Someone Jin-woo recognized from campus security. Officer Han, one of the guards his father's company had placed at the university. Thursday is confirmed, Officer Han said in Korean. I've adjusted the security rotation exactly as Morozov specified. Park Jin-woo will be completely isolated in the staging room for 12 minutes. More than enough time. And the extraction? Principal Kim asked. North service entrance. From waiting. We'll have him out of the building before anyone realizes he's missing. Officer Han paused. You're sure the father won't suspect us? Why would he? His son is weak, friendless, constantly hiding from his own classmates. When he goes missing, everyone will assume he finally broke and ran away. By the time they realize it's a kidnapping, we'll be long gone, and Morozov will have his leverage. In the cramped darkness of the cabinet, Jin-woo felt Sheyella's hand find his, squeezing tight. He focused on that touch, using it to keep the shame and anger at bay. They thought he was pathetic. They were counting on him being pathetic. Maybe that was exactly what he and Sheylla could use. The men discussed a few more details. Timing, contingencies, payment schedules, then left. Jin-woo and Sheylla waited another 5 minutes before emerging from the cabinet. Officer Han, Jin-woo said quietly. My father trusted him. Personally recommended him for campus security. How many others are compromised? I don't know. But if Han is involved, we can't trust any of the campus security. Which means stopping this just got exponentially harder. They left the building the way they came, returning to Jin-woo's car without incident. He drove them back to Sheyella's apartment in silence, his mind racing. We have evidence now, Sheylla said once they were inside. The screenshots, the conversation we overheard. That's enough to take to your father's people. And tell them how we got it? By breaking into the principal's office using skills we shouldn't have. Jin-woo shook his head. They'd investigate, find out we were together, find out I've been lying about where I go after classes. It would prove everything my father thinks about me. Jin-woo. I'm not saying we don't use the evidence. I'm saying we need to be smarter about how we deliver it. Jin-woo pulled out his phone, opening his contacts.
Taemin.
My father's head of security. If I send him the screenshots anonymously with enough context to understand what they're seeing, they'll have to investigate. And if we can make sure Thursday's kidnapping attempt fails in a way that exposes everyone involved, then you save yourself and prove you're not weak. All without your father knowing you were the one who figured it out. Sheylla nodded slowly. That could work. But we still need to make sure the kidnapping fails. Evidence only matters if you're alive to benefit from the investigation. Agreed. Which means Thursday, when they come for me, I need to not be where they expect me to be. But if you're not in the staging room, they'll know something's wrong. Principal Kim will warn Morozov and they'll abort. Evidence won't matter if they disappear before anyone can act on it. Jin-woo thought about it. So I need to be in the staging room, but not alone, and not vulnerable. You want backup, but we can't trust campus security, and bringing in your father's people means admitting you know about the threat. What if my backup isn't from my father's organization? Jin-woo looked at Sheylla. What if it's just you? Jin-woo. I'm not. You're not trained, I know. Neither am I. But you're smart, you're observant, and most importantly, they won't see you as a threat. You're just the foreign exchange student who everyone ignores. If you're in the staging area with me, if we can position things so that when they try to take me, we have evidence, witnesses, something that exposes them in real time. Sheylla was quiet for a moment. That's incredibly dangerous. I know. If this goes wrong, we could both be killed. I know. Your father will find out about us. I know. Jin-woo took her hands. Sheylla, you don't have to do this. You don't owe me anything. This is my family's mess. My father's world. You could walk away right now and I wouldn't blame you. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jin-woo, I've been in love with you for 3 months. You think I'm walking away now? His breath caught. They'd never said it out loud before. They'd been intimate. They'd shared secrets. They'd built something real in the margins of their isolated lives. But the word love had felt too dangerous, too permanent for two people the world seemed determined to keep apart. I love you too, Jin-woo said quietly. Which is why I need you to be sure about this. I'm sure. We figure this out together. That's what we do. Sheylla pulled out her laptop again. Now let's plan how to turn your weakness into their worst nightmare. They worked through the night. Jin-woo sent Taemin the screenshots anonymously from a burner email account Sheylla set up, with just enough context to make the threat clear. Principal Kim and Officer Han compromised. Thursday assembly is a trap. Investigate immediately. Then they planned Thursday itself. The staging room was small, maybe 400 square feet, with one door leading to the main auditorium and one leading to a service corridor. According to the schematics Jin-woo pulled from the security system, there were no cameras inside the staging room itself, a blind spot that Morozov's people were clearly counting on. We need cameras, Sheylla said. If this happens and no one sees it, it's our word against theirs. I have an idea. Jin-woo called a friend from his technology club, one of the few students who didn't openly mock him, mostly because Jin-woo had helped him pass his programming class.
Minutsu, ina a favor.
Small wireless cameras, the kind that stream to cloud storage. Can you get me 3 of them by Wednesday? Minho could. No questions asked, which Jin-woo appreciated. Wednesday afternoon, Jin-woo and Sheylla returned to campus. Using Jin-woo's student government access, they entered the auditorium during a maintenance window and planted the cameras, one covering each door to the staging room, one covering the room's interior. All 3 were positioned to look like part of the existing equipment, small enough to miss on a casual inspection. If they come for you Thursday, we'll have video evidence of everything, Sheylla said as they finished. That plus the screenshots should be enough to expose everyone involved. Assuming we survive to use it. There's that optimism I fell in love with. They spent Wednesday night together in Sheyella's apartment, neither of them sleeping much. Jin-woo kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Sheylla kept refining their plan, adding contingencies, preparing for variables. At some point in the early morning hours, they became intimate again, seeking comfort in each other before whatever Thursday would bring. Afterward, lying in her small bed, Jin-woo traced patterns on her shoulder. If this works, he said quietly, if we actually pull this off and I'm still alive Friday morning, I'm telling my father about you, about us. I don't care what he thinks anymore. And if he disowns you, then I'll have you and that'll be enough. Jin-woo kissed her forehead. I've spent my whole life trying to be what he wanted. Maybe it's time I tried being what I actually am. Which is someone who thinks instead of fights, someone who plans instead of reacts, someone who loves a brilliant woman from Nigeria who taught me that strength doesn't always look like what my father thinks it should. Sheylla pulled him closer. For what it's worth, I think you're exactly the kind of man the world needs more of. Tell me that again if we survive Thursday. Thursday morning arrived too quickly. Jin-woo went to his morning classes, maintaining his usual routine. His father's men were on campus. He spotted at least 3 Park family security members trying to look like regular university personnel. Taemin had clearly taken the anonymous warning seriously, but they weren't obvious about it. And that was good. If Morozov's people saw increased security, they'd abort. Sheylla attended her classes too, but they met briefly at lunch in their usual spot, an empty classroom on the 2nd floor that most students avoided. Your father's people are here, Sheylla said. I counted for that, I'm certain of, probably more I missed. They're being subtle about it. Taemin is smart. He'll investigate without tipping off the conspirators. Jin-woo checked his watch. Assembly starts at 3 p.m. My father arrives at 3:12. According to Principal Kim's schedule, I'm supposed to be in the staging room by 2:50 to review remarks I'm supposed to introduce him with. And I'm supposed to be... Where, exactly? Officially? In the auditorium with the other students. But I'm going to ask you to help me review my remarks. We'll go to the staging room together. Once we're inside, you hide in the equipment closet. If everything goes according to plan, when Morozov's people come for me, you'll be witness to everything while the cameras record it all. And if they check the closet, then we improvise. But they're expecting me to be alone. They won't be looking for anyone else. If you're still with me, hit that like button because the next 30 minutes of this story are going to be absolutely intense. At 2:45, Jin-woo and Sheylla made their way to the auditorium. Students were already filing in, faculty members taking their positions. Principal Kim saw Jin-woo and gave him a warm smile that made Jin-woo's skin crawl. "Ready for your introduction, Jin-woo?" the principal asked. "Yes, sir. I just need a few minutes to review in the staging room." "Of course. I'll have Officer Han escort you." Jin-woo's heart rate spiked, but he kept his expression neutral. "Actually, Sheylla was going to help me practice. She's good with public speaking." Principal Kim's eyes flickered to Sheylla, and Jin-woo saw the calculation there. The principal clearly didn't like the deviation from plan, but dismissing Sheila's presence would seem suspicious. After a moment, he nodded. "Fine, but please be quick. Your father will be here soon." They walked to the staging room together, Officer Han trailing behind them. Inside, the small space was exactly as Jin-woo remembered: chairs, a table with notes, some audio equipment. The equipment closet was in the far corner, barely large enough for Sheylla to fit. "I'll just be outside," Officer Han said, positioning himself by the door. "Let me know if you need anything." Jin-woo nodded, turning to Sheylla. They went through the motions of reviewing his remarks, speaking loudly enough for Han to hear through the door. After about 3 minutes, Jin-woo moved to the equipment closet, opening it as if looking for something. "Now," he whispered. Sheylla slipped into the closet silently. Jin-woo arranged some audio cables to partially obscure her, then closed the door most of the way, leaving just enough gap for her to see out. He returned to reviewing his remarks, checking his watch. 3 p.m. The assembly was starting. Through the walls, he could hear Principal Kim welcoming everyone, introducing the agenda. 3:05. Any minute now. The door from the service corridor opened. Officer Han entered, followed by 2 men Jin-woo didn't recognize. Russian from their features. Morozov's people. Jin-woo Park, one of them said in accented Korean. "Please come with us quietly." Jin-woo backed up, making sure to position himself where the camera would catch everything. "Who are you? What do you want?" "Your father has sent for you. There's been a security incident. We need to move you to a safe location immediately." "My father's security team would never send people I don't know." "And Officer Han, you're supposed to be protecting me." "Not." The second Russian moved fast, pulling out a cloth and rushing Jin-woo. Chloroform, Jin-woo realized, recognizing it from the medical training his father had forced him through. He fought back, but his fighting skills were exactly as poor as everyone always said. Within seconds, the cloth was over his face, chemical smell overwhelming his senses. His last thought before losing consciousness was, "Please let Sheylla be smart enough to stay hidden." He woke up in darkness. His head pounded, mouth dry, hands bound behind his back. From the movement and engine sound, he was in a vehicle. The van, probably. They were taking him to wherever Morozov had planned. But before the panic could fully set in, Jin-woo heard something that made relief flood through him. Sirens. Multiple sirens. Close and getting closer. The van jerked to a stop. Voices shouting in Russian and Korean. His father's voice, unmistakable even through the van's walls. "Get on the ground now." The van's back doors opened. Light flooded in, blinding after the darkness. Jin-woo squinted, seeing his father's security team swarming the vehicle, weapons drawn. Taemin was there, pulling Jin-woo out, cutting the zip ties around his wrists. "Jin-woo, are you hurt?"
I'm okay.
"How did you?" "We received intelligence about the kidnapping plot. Been tracking the conspirators for 2 days." Taemin helped him stand. "Your father wants to see you. Now." They were on a side street near campus, 3 Park family vehicles blocking the van's escape route. Officer Han was on his knees, hands behind his head. The 2 Russian operatives were face down on the pavement, Jin-woo's father's men securing them with professional efficiency. And Dae-young Park himself stood near his car, watching everything with an expression Jin-woo couldn't read. "Father," Jin-woo said, approaching slowly. His head still spun from the chloroform, his whole body shaking from adrenaline. "You were supposed to be in the staging room," his father said quietly. "Alone." That was what the principal's schedule indicated. But Sheylla was helping me review my remarks. So she was there too. Sheylla. His father's tone made it clear he knew exactly who she was, had probably known for months. The Nigerian exchange student you've been seeing. The one you've been lying about. Jin-woo's stomach dropped. Father, She stayed in the equipment closet after you were taken. Smart of her. When my people arrived, she had video evidence of the entire kidnapping, already uploaded to cloud storage with timestamps. Dae-young's expression was unreadable. She also had screenshots of Principal Kim's communications with Morozov, financial records of the bribe, detailed information about the conspiracy. When Taemin asked her how she obtained this intelligence, she said, Jin-woo and I have been investigating for 3 days. Jin-woo's mouth went dry. Sheylla had told them everything. So let me understand this correctly, his father continued. You discovered a plot to kidnap you. Instead of coming to me immediately, you spent 3 days conducting your own investigation, gathering evidence, planting surveillance equipment, and positioning yourself to be kidnapped in a way that would expose everyone involved while keeping yourself safe enough that my people could intervene based on the intelligence you anonymously provided. Yes, sir. And you did all of this with the help of a woman I've never officially met, using skills you've never demonstrated in any of the training I've put you through. Yes, sir. His father was quiet for a long moment. Then why? Why what? Why not come to me? Why handle this yourself? Jin-woo had spent 22 years avoiding this confrontation. Now, standing on a Seoul street with his father's enemies in custody, and his own life having just been saved by his own planning, he found he had nothing left to lose. Because I knew what you'd say, that I was weak for not seeing the threat coming, that I was pathetic for running from my bullies instead of fighting them, that I was a disappointment for being exactly what I've always been. Someone who thinks instead of fights, who plans instead of reacts, who loves someone you'd never approve of. Jin-woo met his father's eyes. I handled this myself because I knew if I came to you, you'd save me, but you'd also make sure I understood how much I'd failed by needing to be saved. And I'm tired of failing in your eyes, father. So I decided to succeed in my own way, using my own strengths, even if you'd never call them strengths. Dae-young was silent. Around them, his security team was loading the captured operatives into vehicles, securing the scene. Jin-woo could see Sheylla near one of the cars, giving a statement to Taemin. Your own strengths, his father finally said. Strategic thinking, intelligence gathering, tactical planning, the ability to see 3 moves ahead and position yourself to win without throwing a single punch. I know they're not the strengths you wanted.
No.
They're not. His father paused. They're better, because any fool can be strong. Any idiot can solve problems with violence. But seeing a threat coming, gathering evidence to expose it, and executing a plan that saves yourself while destroying your enemies? That's the kind of strength that builds empires, not just maintains them. Jin-woo stared at his father, certain he'd misheard. You think I'm disappointed? Dae-young continued. Jin-woo, I've spent 20 years trying to turn you into a fighter because that's what I am, and I assumed that's what you needed to be. But what you did over the past 3 days, identifying a threat, investigating it, gathering evidence, positioning multiple parties to expose the conspiracy while keeping yourself alive. I couldn't have done that at your age. Probably couldn't do it now. You're not angry?
I'm furious.
At myself, for not seeing who you actually were. At this university, for allowing my enemies to corrupt it from the inside. At Principal Kim, who I will personally ensure never works in education again. His father's expression softened slightly. But at you? No, you saved yourself. You exposed a conspiracy that went deeper than we realized. And you did it using exactly the kind of intelligence-based approach that our organization desperately needs as we move into a new generation of operations. Jin-woo felt something break open in his chest, years of tension, of trying and failing, of never being enough. What about Sheylla? The woman who helped you conduct a 3-day counterintelligence operation and had the presence of mind to hide in a closet with cameras recording everything? The woman who, when my people arrived, Immediately provided them with evidence so organized it probably saved us days of investigation. Dae-young raised an eyebrow. I think I need to meet her properly, because anyone who can turn my disappointing son into an effective operative deserves my respect. I'm not an operative. I'm just. You're exactly what this family needs. Someone who can think instead of just react. Someone who can plan operations that don't require anyone to die. His father gestured toward the captured operatives. This is clean. No bloodshed, multiple conspirators exposed. Evidence that will stand up in any investigation. That's the future of how we need to operate. And apparently, you're better at it than anyone I currently have working for me. Does this mean you're not going to try to make me into something I'm not anymore? This means I'm going to start letting you be exactly what you are. Which seems to be a strategic thinker with a talent for intelligence operations and a girlfriend who complements your skills perfectly. His father paused. Bring her to dinner this weekend. Your mother will want to meet her. Mother? But she will be thrilled that you found someone who makes you effective instead of miserable. Trust me. She's been telling me for years I was pushing you in the wrong direction. Turns out she was right.
Taimin eproaihed.
Sir, we have everyone in custody. Principal Kim was attempting to flee campus, but we intercepted him. Morozov's operation is compromised. We have enough evidence to force a negotiation on terms favorable to us. Excellent. Take Jin-woo and his girlfriend back to her apartment. Make sure they're safe. I'll handle the cleanup. Dae-young looked at his son. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we'll discuss your future role in the organization. Clearly, I've been wasting your talents. Jin-woo was driven back to campus with Sheylla, Taemin and 2 guards accompanying them to ensure their safety. In the back seat of the car, Sheylla took his hand. You told them everything? Jin-woo asked quietly. Everything. The investigation, the break-in, the cameras. All of it. I figured if we were going to be exposed anyway, we might as well be exposed as people who successfully stopped a kidnapping. She squeezed his hand. Your father seemed impressed. He called you my girlfriend. In front of his security team. That's basically a public announcement in my family. Is that okay? It's perfect. Terrifying, but perfect. Jin-woo leaned his head back against the seat. I can't believe we actually pulled that off. We're a good team. We're an insane team. Normal couples go to movies and study together. We conduct counterintelligence operations and expose Mafia conspiracies. Sheylla laughed. I like our version better. Back at her apartment, with Taemin's people positioned discreetly outside for security, they finally allowed themselves to process what had happened. Jin-woo sat on her couch, the adrenaline finally wearing off, leaving him exhausted and shaky. I thought I was going to die, he admitted. When they put that cloth over my face when everything went dark. I thought that was it. Sheylla sat next to him, pulling him close. But it wasn't, because you planned for it. Because you were smart enough to make sure even if they took you, the evidence would survive. Because you thought 3 moves ahead. My father said that I think 3 moves ahead naturally. Jin-woo's voice was wondering. He's never complimented my thinking before. Just criticized my fighting. Maybe he finally understands what you've been trying to tell him all along. That strength comes in different forms. They sat together in silence for a while, both processing the chaos of the day. Finally, Jin-woo spoke. He wants to meet you, properly. Dinner this weekend. Meeting the Mafia boss father. That's not terrifying at all. He called you someone who makes me effective. From him, that's basically a blessing. And your mother? Will probably love you immediately. She's always hated how my father tried to turn me into a fighter. Having a girlfriend who helped me succeed as a thinker instead? She'll be thrilled. Sheylla was quiet for a moment. Jin-woo, what does this mean for us? For your future? You saved yourself today, but you also proved to your father that you can operate in his world. Are you going to get pulled deeper into the organization now? It was a fair question, and one Jin-woo had been thinking about since his father's unexpected approval. I don't know. Maybe. But if I do get involved, it'll be on my terms. Using my strengths, not trying to fake having his. Jin-woo took her hand. And whatever I do, whatever role I end up playing in my family's business, I'm not doing it without you. We're a team now. The world can deal with that or get out of our way. Very romantic. Very Mafia air of you. I'm learning. Jin-woo kissed her forehead. Thank you. For believing in me. For helping me figure this out. For being brave enough to hide in a closet while Russian mobsters kidnapped me. That might be the weirdest thank you I've ever received. Get used to it. Dating a Mafia heir is going to involve a lot of weird thank yous. The next morning, Jin-woo woke to 17 missed calls from various Park family members, 12 texts from his mother demanding to know why she was hearing about kidnapping attempts from the security team instead of her son, and one message from his father. Operation briefing at 10 a.m. Your presence required. Bring Sheylla if she's interested in understanding what she's gotten herself into. They arrived at the Park family's operations center, a legitimate-looking office building that housed some very illegitimate business operations. At exactly 10 a.m., Jin-woo's mother was waiting in the lobby, and she immediately pulled him into a hug that lasted approximately 30 seconds longer than was comfortable. You could have died, she said in Korean, her voice shaking. You could have died, and I didn't even know you were in danger. I'm sorry, mother. I didn't want to worry you. Worry me? Jin-woo, worrying is my job. Letting me do my job is yours. She pulled back, studying his face, then turned to Sheylla. And you're the woman who saved my son. Actually, we saved each other, Sheylla said carefully. It was collaborative. Jin-woo's mother smiled, and it was genuine. Collaborative. I like that. Come, both of you. Your father is waiting, and when your father is waiting, it's better not to keep him longer than necessary. The briefing room was full. Jin-woo recognized most of his father's top lieutenants, including Taemin, who gave him a small nod of respect. Dae-young stood at the head of the table, reviewing documents. Jin-woo, Sheylla, seat. His father gestured to 2 chairs. We have much to discuss. Over the next hour, they went through everything. The extent of Morozov's infiltration. Not just Principal Kim and Officer Han, but 3 other university staff members, 2 campus security guards, and a student who'd been feeding information about Jin-woo's schedule and movements. The evidence Sheylla and Jin-woo had gathered was being used to build cases against everyone involved. The Park family's legal team was already coordinating with prosecutors, carefully ensuring that the evidence chain couldn't be traced back to an illegal break-in. Morozov has reached out through intermediaries, Dae-young said. He wants to negotiate. His operation in Seoul is compromised. His people are in custody, and he knows we have enough evidence to destroy his organization's credibility with partners throughout Asia. What are the terms? One of the lieutenants asked. Complete withdrawal from Seoul. Recognition of Park family territory as off-limits. A formal apology and reparations for the attempted kidnapping. Dae-young's expression was satisfied. We've essentially won a war without firing a single shot. Because of evidence and planning rather than violence. All eyes turned to Jin-woo. Which brings us to you, his father continued. You've demonstrated capabilities we didn't know you possessed. Strategic intelligence gathering, operational planning, the ability to position multiple parties to achieve desired outcomes. These are exactly the skills our organization needs as we transition to more sophisticated operations. I'm not interested in becoming an enforcer, Jin-woo said carefully. No one is asking you to be. But intelligence operations? Strategic planning? Identifying threats before they materialize? These are roles that require exactly your skill set. Dae-young leaned forward. I'm offering you a position in our Strategic Intelligence Division. You'd work with Taemin, coordinating threat assessment and operational planning. You'd use your mind, not your fists. And you'd be doing exactly what you did this week. Thinking 3 moves ahead to keep our family safe. Jin-woo looked at Sheylla. She squeezed his hand under the table. What about my education? Jin-woo asked. I have 1 more year of university. Finish it. This position doesn't require full-time involvement until you graduate. Until then, you'll train, learn our systems, work on smaller projects. Think of it as an internship for something you're actually good at. It was the closest thing to a compliment his father had ever given him. And the offer itself was better than Jin-woo had hoped for. A role in the organization that used his actual strengths, with time to finish his education, and apparently no expectation that he'd transform into his father. "I'll do it," Jin-woo said. "On one condition." His father raised an eyebrow. "You're negotiating? If I'm going to think 3 moves ahead for this family, I need access to real information. Not filtered reports, not sanitized briefings. I need to know what we're actually facing so I can plan accordingly." Dae-young smiled slightly. "Agreed. Tae-min will give you full access to our intelligence systems starting next week. Any other conditions?" "Sheylla stays in the loop. She's part of this now, whether any of us planned for it or not. If I'm working on something, she needs to know what's happening. For her safety and because she's proven she can think strategically too." "Absolutely not," one of the older lieutenants said immediately. "She's an outsider, not family, not. She saved my life and exposed a conspiracy that could have destroyed us." Jin-woo interrupted. "She earned her place here, and I'm not doing this without her." The room went silent. It was the first time Jin-woo had ever directly challenged his father's lieutenants. The first time he'd made demands instead of accepting whatever role they decided to give him. His father studied him for a long moment. Then, "Sheylla has clearance to be briefed on operations that directly affect her safety or Jin-woo's operations. She's also invited to family functions as Jin-woo's acknowledged girlfriend. That should settle the question of whether she belongs." He looked around the table. "Anyone have objections?" No one spoke. "Good. Then we're done here. Jin-woo, Tae-min will contact you next week about training schedules. Sheylla, welcome to the family. It's not always this exciting, but it's never boring." As they left the building, Jin-woo felt something he'd never experienced in relation to his father's organization. Hope. Not that everything would be perfect, but that maybe he could find a way to exist in this world without betraying who he actually was. "So," Sheylla said as they walked to his car, "I just got welcomed to a Mafia family. That's new. Regrets?"
Weirdly, no.
Terrified, yes, but no regrets. She looked at him. "Your father is less scary than I expected. He's terrifying. You just impressed him enough that he's being polite. Wait until you see him actually angry." "Looking forward to it. Sort of." They drove back toward campus in comfortable silence. The spring afternoon was beautiful, cherry blossoms still falling like snow, the city alive around them. Jin-woo thought about how different his life looked now compared to a week ago. A week ago, he was the weak heir everyone pitied, the disappointing son, the student who couldn't command respect. Now he was the person who'd exposed a major security breach, saved himself through intelligence rather than violence, and earned a role in his father's organization that actually fit who he was. All because Sheylla had transferred to his school and showed him that being underestimated was a strength if you knew how to use it. "What are you thinking about?" Sheylla asked. "That I spent 22 years trying to be strong in ways I'd never be strong. And then you showed up and taught me I was already strong. Just differently." Jin-woo reached over and took her hand. "Thank you for that. For seeing something in me that no one else did. I saw who you actually were instead of who everyone expected you to be. That's not hard when you pay attention. Most people don't pay attention. Most people's loss." They arrived back at campus just as evening classes were ending. Students everywhere, moving between buildings, laughing and talking, completely unaware that 3 days ago this place had been the center of a Mafia conspiracy. Jin-woo saw some of his usual tormentors across the quad, the ones who made his life hell regularly. One of them noticed him, started to say something mocking, then saw Sheylla beside him, saw the way Jin-woo carried himself differently now. Not like someone trying to be tough, but like someone who'd figured out his own kind of strength and apparently thought better of it. The group moved on without incident. "That was new," Sheylla observed. "People treat you differently when they sense you're not afraid anymore." "Are you?" "Not afraid." Jin-woo thought about it.
I'm terrified.
Of this new role, of what it means to be part of my father's world, of all the ways I could fail. But I'm not afraid of being who I am anymore. That's different. They walked across campus together, two people who'd started as outsiders and somehow become exactly what they needed to be. For each other, for themselves, and apparently for a mafia organization that was slowly learning that strength came in many forms. That weekend, they had dinner with Jin-woo's parents. It was surprisingly normal, good food, polite conversation, Jin-woo's mother asking Sheylla about her family in Nigeria and her plans after graduation. The only unusual element was when Dae-young casually mentioned that Principal Kim had resigned and was pursuing other opportunities, which everyone at the table understood meant he was very carefully not saying anything about anyone while under investigation. I hear you're interested in nursing, Jin-woo's mother said to Sheylla toward the end of dinner. Yes, ma'am. I want to work in trauma medicine eventually. Interesting. Our organization has medical needs, situations where people can't go to regular hospitals for various reasons. Having someone with trauma training who understands our world would be valuable. Jin-woo nearly choked on his water. Mother, are you recruiting my girlfriend? I'm suggesting she keep her options open. Not everyone in this family has to be involved in operations. But having skills that serve the family? That's always respected. Sheylla smiled. I'll keep that in mind, ma'am. After dinner, Jin-woo's father pulled him aside. You've done well this week with your mother with finding your role. I'm proud of you. Jin-woo had waited his entire life to hear those words. Now that he had, they felt different than he'd imagined. Not like validation of becoming what his father wanted, but acceptance of who he actually was. Thank you, father. One more thing. The men who used to give you trouble at school? The ones who made your life difficult. What about them? They've been made aware that the Park Heir is under family protection now. Not because we think you need protecting, but because disrespecting you is now understood to be disrespecting the entire organization. His father's expression was neutral. I expect your university experience will be more pleasant going forward. Father, I don't need you to. I know you don't. But you're my son, and you've proven your value to this family. Letting people disrespect you sends the wrong message to our rivals. This isn't about you being weak. It's about the organization showing we value our strategic thinkers as much as our enforcers. It was manipulation wrapped in protection wrapped in pride. Classic Dae-young Park. But Jin-woo found he didn't mind as much as he once would have. Thank you, he said simply. Driving Sheylla home that night, Jin-woo thought about how much had changed in less than a week. A kidnapping plot, an investigation, a new role in his father's organization, an acknowledged relationship with the woman he loved. This is really happening, he said. We're really doing this. You're dating a mafia heir who's now working in family operations, and my parents basically adopted you at dinner. It's a lot, Sheylla admitted. But Jin-woo, I've been an outsider my entire life. In Nigeria, I was the girl who wanted to leave for better opportunities. Here, I'm the foreign student who doesn't quite fit. With your family, I'm someone who contributed something valuable, who proved she belongs. That's new. And I like it. Even knowing what this world involves, especially knowing, because now I'm not naive about it. I understand the danger, the complexity, the moral compromises. And I'm choosing it anyway. Choosing you anyway. Jin-woo pulled up to her apartment, parking in their usual spot. Before she could get out, he took her hand. I love you, he said. I know I've said it before, but I need you to understand what that means now. It means you're part of everything. My life, my family, my very complicated world. It means when people threaten me, they're threatening you. It means you'll be protected, but also watched, and your freedom will be limited in ways that might suffocate you eventually. Jin-woo, I know what I'm signing up for. Do you? Because once you're in this deep, getting out becomes almost impossible. Sheylla cupped his face in her hands. I'm not trying to get out. I'm trying to build something with you. Whatever that looks like, however complicated it gets, we'll figure it out together. That's what we do. And really, that was all the answer Jin-woo needed. Monday morning, Jin-woo returned to campus for the first time since the kidnapping. Word had somehow spread, not about the mafia details, but that there had been a security incident, involving Jin-woo, and that several staff members were no longer employed. Students whispered as he walked past, but the whispers were different now. Less mockery, more curiosity, more respect. His tormentors kept their distance. Sheylla met him between classes, and they walked together across campus like they always had. But now they weren't hiding. Now Jin-woo held her hand openly, and anyone who had a problem with it was smart enough to keep it to themselves. "I could get used to this," Sheylla said. "Which part?" "The part where we don't have to hide. Where we just are, and that's enough. We earned it. By being smarter than everyone expected, by trusting each other, by figuring out that our strengths together were better than any strength we had separately." They had lunch in their usual spot, the empty classroom on the second floor. Except it wasn't empty anymore. Word had spread about Jin-woo and Sheyella's strategic thinking, and suddenly other students wanted to be around them. People asked Jin-woo's opinion on projects. People included Sheylla in study groups. It was strange being visible when they'd spent so long being invisible. "We could become popular," Sheylla joked. "That would be weird. We could become ourselves and let other people deal with it. That seems better." That evening, Jin-woo had his first official meeting with Taemin about his new role. They met in a cafe near campus, neutral territory, unassuming, the kind of place where no one would notice two men discussing intelligence operations over coffee. "Your father wants you trained in our systems," Taemin began. "Threat assessment protocols, intelligence gathering techniques, operational planning frameworks. The goal is to have you functioning as a strategic analyst within 6 months." "What does that actually mean?" "Day to day. It means you'll receive intelligence reports about potential threats to the family. You'll analyze them, identify patterns, recommend responses. Sometimes those responses will be diplomatic. Sometimes they'll be operational. Your job is to think 3 moves ahead so the organization is never caught off guard." Jin-woo thought about it. Like what happened with Morozov. If someone had been analyzing the patterns, principal receiving unexplained income, security guard with sudden offshore accounts, movements that didn't match normal operations, we might have seen this coming before it became a kidnapping plot. "Exactly. That's the kind of thinking we need."
Taemin paused.
"Your father said you'd be good at this. I didn't believe him until I saw what you and Sheylla accomplished in 3 days. Now I think you might be better at it than anyone we have. I had help. All the best operators do. The key is knowing who to trust." Taemin slid a tablet across the table. "This is your access portal. Intelligence feeds, threat assessments, operational reports. Start reading. Get familiar with how we think about security. Next week, we'll start training you on analysis frameworks." Jin-woo took the tablet, feeling the weight of what he was accepting. This wasn't just a job. This was a role in his father's world. A commitment to being part of the organization he'd spent his life trying to avoid. But it was a role that fit who he actually was. And that made all the difference. Over the following months, Jin-woo's life transformed. He finished his university year with honors. Turned out he was excellent at strategic business planning when he wasn't paralyzed by fear of his father's disappointment. He trained with Taemin, learning to read intelligence reports, identify patterns, think in terms of operations and contingencies. He and Sheylla became campus fixtures, the couple who'd somehow exposed a major scandal and come out stronger. People respected them now, not because Jin-woo had suddenly become tough or Sheylla had stopped being foreign, but because they'd proven they were smart, capable, and not to be underestimated. Sheylla finished her year and got accepted into one of Seoul's top nursing programs. Jin-woo's mother made a very generous anonymous donation to that program's scholarship fund. No one questioned the timing. Jin-woo's role in the Park family organization grew. He started identifying threats before they materialized, recommending diplomatic solutions instead of violent ones, saving the family resources and complications. His father began consulting him on major decisions, trusting his strategic thinking in ways he'd never trusted Jin-woo's fighting abilities. The organization itself began to change, slowly. More focus on intelligence and planning. Less reliance on brute force. It was generational shift, and Jin-woo was at the center of it. But the most important change was internal. Jin-woo stopped trying to be what he wasn't and started being excellent at what he was. And in doing that, he found something he'd never expected in his father's world. Purpose. A year after the kidnapping attempt, Jin-woo and Sheylla sat in the same cafe where he'd met with Taemin. They'd just come from dinner with his parents, where Dae-young had formally announced Jin-woo as head of the organization's Strategic Intelligence Division. "A year ago, I was the weak heir everyone pitted," Jin-woo said. "Now I'm running intelligence for a Mafia organization. Life is weird." "Life is what you make it," Sheylla corrected. "You made yourself into someone valuable by using your actual strengths instead of pretending to have someone else's. We made ourselves valuable. I couldn't have done any of this without you." "True."
"I'm incredibly helpful."
She grinned. "Also incredibly modest." Jin-woo laughed, pulling her close. They sat together watching the Seoul evening crowd pass by. Students, businesspeople, families, all of them unaware that the quiet young couple in the cafe was connected to one of the city's most powerful criminal organizations. "Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice?" Jin-woo asked quietly. "Getting involved in this world?" "Every day," Sheylla admitted. "But then I remember the alternative. You pretending to be something you're not, me going through life as an outsider, both of us alone when we could be together. This way is complicated, dangerous, morally ambiguous. But it's real, and we're facing it together. Together. I like that. You better, because you're stuck with me now. Your mother already calls me her future daughter-in-law." "She does." "Last week, while we were planning the charity gala. Very casually, just dropped it into conversation like it was already decided." Jin-woo smiled. "Knowing my mother, it probably is already decided. She's scarier than my father when she wants something." "Should I be worried?" "Only if you don't want to marry into a mafia family, build a life that's equal parts normal and dangerous, and spend the rest of your days watching me think 3 moves ahead while you keep me grounded in reality." Sheylla pretended to consider it. "That actually sounds perfect." Yeah. They left the cafe hand in hand, walking through Seoul's glowing evening streets, 2 people who'd started as outsiders and become exactly what they needed to be. For each other, for themselves, and for a criminal organization that was slowly learning that the old ways weren't the only ways. Jin-woo would never be the kind of heir his father originally wanted. He'd never be physically intimidating, never be comfortable with violence, never fit the traditional mafia boss prototype. But he was something better. Someone who could see threats coming, who could plan operations that didn't require bloodshed, who could think 3 moves ahead and position his family to win without anyone dying. And in a world that was becoming more complicated, more surveilled, more dangerous to operate in through brute force alone, that kind of strength might just be exactly what the next generation needed. The question that lingered, the one Jin-woo and Sheylla discussed late into many nights, was this: if you build something better using the skills your father's dark world taught you, does that make you complicit in that darkness? Or does it mean you're transforming something evil into something less evil, which is the most any of us can hope to accomplish? They never found a satisfying answer. Maybe there wasn't one. But they kept building anyway, kept trying anyway, kept believing that choosing to make things better, even incrementally, even imperfectly, mattered more than walking away and pretending the darkness didn't exist. And maybe that belief, more than any tactical brilliance or strategic planning, was the real strength they brought to Jin-woo's complicated